Alright, so as you already know, Sonic X Shadow Generations was revealed last week, and everyone gave their initial trailer reactions and whatnot. I gave my reaction. If you still wanted to check that out, you can check that out. And I was gonna give a more detailed, structured discussion, giving my full thoughts on the game. And of course, then the Sonic Movie 3 news just took over, and it was like, okay, we in feasting season, okay? We don't know how good the food is yet. Okay, I mean, the movie's gonna be fire though, we know that. But in terms of the games, we don't know yet. But we were feasting on something, so we had to deal with that first. And now that the dust is settled, I can finally give my thoughts on Sonic X Shadow Generations in full and how I actually feel about this game, because I got a lot of things to say. So we're gonna get into all this right now. But if you subscribe to the channel already, please make sure to subscribe, okay? So imagine the makers of Genshin Impact made a space fantasy RPG. Well, you don't have to imagine, because this video sponsor Honkai Star Rail has got you covered, man. And they won the best mobile game at the Game Awards, the best game for Google Play, and the best game for the App Store in 2023. It's cross-platform, so you can play it on your PS5, the data syncs across to your PC and mobile devices, and with version 2.0 things get even crazier, man. This update introduces the new world of Penacony, featuring a plethora of maps, brand new characters, and exciting adventures to embark on. While Penacony may initially appear as a luxurious hotel, its hidden side can only be accessed through the realm of dreams. The city is filled with revelry and hedonism, but behind the festive facade, a crisis looms, drawing players into a web of conspiracy where they must seek solutions by any means necessary. And of course, you gotta talk about these brand new characters. We got one called Black Swan, an elegant woman who practices divination using a crystal ball and cards, exuding a mysterious aura. With a crystal ball and cards in her hand, she embodies the stereotype image of a diviner. While she often displays a laid-back and gentle demeanor, her true intentions remain elusive. Black Swan is a wind-type nihility character, boasting remarkable DOT damage capabilities. And we can't forget about the new character Sparkle. She's a mischievous and unpredictable girl. Her clothes predominantly feature the red color, complementing her cute appearance. She's an impish girl characterized by her mischief and an air of mystery. Sparkle is a quantum-type harmony character capable of restoring skill points for her allies. Now, a plethora of exciting gameplay awaits exploration in the brand new world in version 2.0, including wall walking, transformative mazes, and more. And on top of version updates, there's also a series of fun online and offline events waiting for you. And of course, you can log in right now to get the limited 5-star character Dr. Ratio for free. So make sure to download Honkai Star Rail for free using the link in the description below. And of course, use the redemption code on the screen right now to redeem 50 Stellar Jade. Alright, Sonic X Shadow Generations. Before we get into the nitty gritty of how I feel about the game, there's a few things we gotta talk about, okay? We gotta talk about the zip, okay? We gotta talk about the zip. You know what I'm talking about, right? Zippo. Zippo took his biggest L ever, okay? And I hate saying this, right? But he went on record, and this is before the game got officially revealed, he went on record saying this is not the Sonic Shadow game he's hearing about. That's a brand new game coming this holiday in time of the movie. That will be announced later on this year. And that this Sonic Generations Remaster was gonna come out around the summer, like June, to coincide with Sonic's birthday. Of course, we found out that wasn't the case because the game got revealed and it was Sonic X Shadow Generations and it was coming in the holiday, autumn, which is September, October, November. And Zippo was not looking good at that point. He's now made the updated blog post and said, yes, Shadow Generations is 2024's traditional Sonic game. And he said, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he said, anyway, yes, this is indeed the game. A couple wires got crossed, but all of the details I previously heard line up, okay? He said a couple wires got crossed. And listen, I get it, right? When it comes to leaking, there's like a hierarchy of leaks, right? If you think about this as like learning information about something, let's say the CEO's got all the information and then it trickles down to the lower level employees. Whoever Zippo's plug is not the CEO. He's not the up there guy. He's getting like third, fourth hand information. So it makes sense that Zippo be getting shit wrong a lot of the time because he ain't getting it from the source, okay? If he was a drug dealer, he's bought from like 4 or 5 different middlemen, like his shit been stepped on, like this shit not pure, okay? Because there's some people in this community, I'm not gonna mention no names, but I know some of these people who their shit be pure as fuck. Like, they know all the insider shit, and they be the ones that don't be saying shit the most. Like, when Color's Ultimate first leaked at the German dubbing studio and I covered it first, I was the first one to break the story because I saw the leak early. Or at least the first on YouTube, because someone saw it on Twitter and I made a video first. But my point is, people already knew in the community. People that were in. They just weren't talking about it because they weren't trying to snitch on what was going on. A lot of them don't like talking to me about leaks because they're like, well, he's a Sonic 2, he covers the news. If I tell him some shit, he's gonna say some shit, he's gonna make a video. But I know these people, and I know people people that are plugged in and they are in, okay? Zippo is not that. But we still have to give the Zip credit, okay? He still deserves some credit. I know people are mad, people saying he's a fraud, and look, again, he's inconsistent.
Wildly inconsistent.
But he was the first person to mention that we were getting a 3D Sonic and Shadow game in holiday 2024 and that it wasn't going to be Frontiers 2 or Open Zone. He was the first. I covered it early December and no one had said it before then. That doesn't mean he was the only person to know, because after it came out, all the regular people that are plugged in who know about the shit were not surprised at all. They weren't saying, don't believe this shit. They were actually talking about it as if it was potentially gonna happen. So I'm sure other people knew in the community who didn't want to say anything, but Zippo was the first to publicly go on record and say we were getting a 3D Sonic and Shadow game in holiday 2024. I just have to remind people, because I know people love to bring up the L's, but they hate to bring up the W's. As the great Aubrey Graham once said in 2015, they scream out my failures and whisper my accomplishments. But I do want to talk about one thing that Zippo mentioned in his blog post. He said, yes, this is coming to Nintendo's next console. Again, that's not a leak. I mean, I guess to him it is, but like reality, I already saw this coming. Well, the moment they said it was coming out holiday period, I was like, this is Switch 2. On top of that, Nintendo dropped the trailer late on their channel. So it wasn't the same day as everyone else dropped the trailer. And Nintendo's trailer for Sonic X Shadow Generations is running at 4K 60 FPS. Apparently, I can't confirm this, so I'm not gonna go through Nintendo's entire channel, but apparently this is the first 4K 60 FPS trailer that Nintendo has ever posted on their channel. I looked at the recent trailers and they were 1080p. This is 4K. It's coming out on the holiday and it's 4K 60 FPS. Now, Zippo said before that the game was going to run at 4K 60 FPS on consoles, and again, this is not really a Zippo thing because it was believable, right? PS5 could do 4K 60 on this. Same with Xbox Series systems, they could do 60 on this as well. The only wild card was the Nintendo Switch, and now that we're getting Switch 2, this will run at 4K 60 on Switch 2. Those of you who think Nintendo will never do 4K because Nintendo don't like power, get over it. It's 2024. 4K is old. I've been making videos in 4K since 2016, and I'm not rich. 4K is not some futuristic thing that things cannot be done on, okay? Especially now with AI upscaling, the game will probably be running at 1080p with a smart upscale anyway. 1080p in handheld mode and maybe 4K docked with the smart upscaling, like, it's not even ridiculous, okay? The only question that remains is how's it gonna run on the original Switch, because I know Sega's not gonna skip the original Switch, even though it's gonna run worse on there. I just don't think they would. I mean, the original Switch is the third highest selling system of all time. It's on track to potentially be in the DS. I hope it doesn't. DS should stay goated, but it's on track. If they want to separate the two experiences, you know, have Sonic Generations be one thing and have Shadow Generations be another thing, then they could make it such that the Sonic Generations remaster still hits 60 FPS on the original Switch 1, but then the Shadow Generations stuff, which is clearly built with those Frontiers era graphics, will then have to be capped at 30. Or if they want to keep a consistent 30 on the whole thing, then that's up to them. Either way, I don't care because I'll be getting a Switch 2 and I have a PC and a Steam Deck and all these other things. So I'm not really fussed about that, but it's just something we need to talk about. And that actually ties into how I feel about Sonic X Shadow Generations, because I'm talking about the cohesion, right? Because Sonic X Shadow Generations is not really cohesive at all. Which is not to say that it's going to be bad, it's just clearly not cohesive. Now, obviously, the State of Play revealed this game first, right? And the PlayStation blog about the game mentions multiple times that Shadow is a standalone adventure, right? It is a separate thing. They want you to know this is basically two games in one package. It's not one game together. The Shadow part is entirely different in graphics, mechanics, physics to the Sonic Generations part, which makes it feel like an unconnected experience, like two games packed together to sell each other better, right? Like the Shadow game is new, so it will sell because it's new, but then we have to bundle it with Sonic because Sonic is the main character, so we have to have them together. So it doesn't really feel like as cohesive as the name Sonic X Shadow Generations makes it feel like it could be. Now, again, I could put up with that if both individual games do what they need to do, but it's still kind of jarring, and we need to talk about that, right? So since they're two separate games, we're going to talk about them separately. I'm going to talk about how I feel about the Sonic Generations portion and how I feel about the Shadow Generations portion. The Sonic Generations portion is it's underwhelming, right? It's not bad, it's underwhelming, and I'll explain why. Had this just been a straight port of Generations, like we're just re-releasing Generations and they charge like $30 for it, whatever, cool, right? I would have been like, yeah, whatever. But watch every single trailer reaction for this game and it basically conveys exactly what I was thinking. Everyone just looked at Generations like, it's Generations, whatever. And then Shadow shows up and they're like, okay, Shadow? Is it gonna be like playable in Generations? Like, what's happening here? And then you see Hedgehog Engine 2 and it's like brand new graphics, it's like Final Chase, it's like Shadow the Hedgehog levels and all that shit. It's like, what the, dude? This, that, what? And it's like, bundled with Generations again? It's so weird. It's like the weirdest thing ever. It's like Nintendo bundling Super Mario Odyssey 2 with a straight port of Super Mario Sunshine. It's like, what? It's like, it's not that Sunshine is bad, but it's like, I don't know, it feels so wrong. Like, because it's good that they're porting games. Like, if you straight port certain games, you straight port Heroes, I'll be here for it, okay? Straight porting the game is fine. But the way they were marketing is a complete remaster and like nothing is different. Okay, maybe a few things are different. Some people have mentioned a few visual glitches or errors that are different from the original game. Nothing major. It doesn't seem like a Colors Ultimate situation. Like, it was so visually similar that the average person and even a hardcore fan like me who's got 200 hours in Generations almost could not tell when I was looking at the trailer. There was a few scenes where I was like, maybe something slightly different here, but not enough for me to believe that they recreated it in another engine, which I believe that's what they did, I'm not sure. So clearly their porting abilities so far have been good based on what we've seen. It's just the idea that you bundled it with a new game, but it's like they're both Generations type games. Like Sonic Generations is of course classic Sonic and modern Sonic going through old levels that have been redone, and Shadow Generations is Shadow going through his old levels but with brand new graphics. So it's like, if it was like more cohesive, like if you had built it in the same OG Gen's engine, like it looked like Generations 1, then it would have been cohesive in that sense. Then it would have felt fine together as a package. It's almost like bonus content to that game. Like 3D World Bowser's Fury. Bowser's Fury does not have superior graphics to 3D World because they're both kind of from the same era. Like Wii U and Switch graphics are basically almost the same. Like Breath of the Wild ran on Wii U, ran on Switch. Like it was the same kind of era. But this is in particular is like a 1 to 2 generation jump in graphics that is so noticeable that it's like Shadow Generations just overshadows
pun entirely intended
Sonic Generations visually and presentation wise. It almost makes me want to go, oh, they should have just bumped up Generations to have similar graphics to Shadow Generations, so it's like everything looks Hedgehog Engine 2y and nice and beautiful and fresh, right? But because we don't trust Sonic Team, it's like, well, but then they could fuck up more things. Like they could fuck up the physics and ruin the original generation. So maybe it's best they leave it. We don't trust them. You know, it's like we want them to do more, but we don't trust them to do it right. So it's like, you know what, just don't do anything, right? I think a lot of Sonic fans have kind of just accepted that reality, and I guess I'm gonna have to accept it too. But the lack of cohesion is something that is definitely very noticeable to me. I mean, this is gonna be a full price $60 game, probably 70 with some kind of deluxe bullshit. And for those of you thinking it's not going to be, you can already go on the game.co.uk website. It's a popular game shop in the UK, and it already says from £59.99. Okay, and now you could say, oh, that's a placeholder price, but come on, be real. We've done this before. Sonic Superstars was full price, 60 plus a deluxe version that was 70. If Super made classic Sonic bullshit can be 60, why wouldn't Shadow Generations bundled with Sonic Generations be 60? Be real. Now, if Generations is gonna be a bare minimum port, fine. But there's still some things they have to do for it to be acceptable in my eyes, especially as a PC user who's not just going to be on console happy to get the game run at 60 FPS for the first time on console, minus Microsoft's backwards compatibility that they really went in and boosted the frame rates of all games. The bare minimum for Generations in this instance to not be considered a flop to my eyes, the HUD elements and the menus have to be up-res to 4K. They have to redesign the HUD so that it's actually sharp on a 4K screen. 4K is not a novelty anymore. It's not some new shit. It's not like the first year it came out when people could say it doesn't matter and then 5 years later everyone's got it. It's here. 4K is standard now. It's not a ridiculous thing anymore. People got 4K TVs, people got PS5s. This is not ridiculous. The Switch is about to get 4K with the Switch 2. So the HUD elements should not be low res as fuck. The graphics settings should not be in a separate configuration tool like it was in the original Generations. That was acceptable then. A lot of games did that then. Even then, a lot of games were still having in-game graphic options, but a lot of games still had that separate launcher bullshit. That needs to be fixed. The frame rate needs to be uncapped. No 60 FPS cap. People have got higher refresh rate screens. Having the game be forcefully capped at 60 gives me zero reason to buy the game again. Zero. Because at that point, you're just buying it for the Shadow portion because the Sonic portion has not improved a major issue. And I don't know what they're doing when it comes to this, right? Because obviously different people work on these Sonic games. Colors Ultimate runs above 60 FPS. Like, you can run that at 90, 144, but of course Colors is mid, so why would I do that shit, right? Frontiers is capped at 60. Now there's fan-made patches to run it above 60. They say it's experimental, there's some issues, but it does run above that with these fan-made patches. But the game as it is shipped is capped at 60 FPS. Frontiers. So if Sonic Generations X Shadow Generations is gonna be in this same engine, then it makes me a bit worried for what they plan to do. This is the biggest deal breaker for me when it comes to, is this remaster of Generations even worth playing on PC versus the original. It is this, the frame rate. And to those of you who've never played a game above 60 FPS and think maybe Premy is exaggerating, I am telling you that I am not, okay? Higher refresh rates are so important, especially for games that are fast-paced, aka Sonic, okay? Once you have seen the boost above 60 FPS, you will not want to go back. For the record, there is also a fan-made hack that allows you to go above 60 FPS in base generations, but it breaks a lot of the control, like the analog stick doesn't work, so you can still kind of beat Modern Green Hill with like the boost and the drift, but you can't like direct your turns and shit like that. So I just did it to see how it would feel, and it felt really smooth, but obviously I can't realistically play it like that with those kind of issues. It needs to be sorted out by Sega. If they do those bare minimum things, then as a remaster, I could give the Sonic Generations remaster a 7 out of 10. This is me judging the remaster and not the game, right? The game is its own separate rating to its remastering ability. Like for example, Colors Ultimate as a remaster is shit. It's horrible. It's not a good remaster. But as a game, it's a 6. It's fine, you know? So it's 2 different ratings. So for the remaster Generations to get at least a 7, they need to do the things that I just talked about. Higher res HUD, in-game graphics settings, and especially uncapped frame rate. Without those things, the remaster is useless as a PC user who already has the base game. Now, if you wanted it to be a really good remaster, like an 8 out of 10 level remaster, then there's a few more things they do. There would have to be some visual enhancements that are actually legitimately noticeable, right? I'm not saying it has to be a remake. You don't have to make a remake to have remastered enhancements, right? One of my favorite games of all time, Burnout Paradise, got a remaster in 2018. And this remaster, when compared side by side to the original game, looks significantly improved. Updated for 4K, it just looks a lot nicer. HUD elements are sharper, they updated like the visuals in certain ways. Digital Foundry did a whole video on it, you can check it out. It's still a remaster, not a remake, so slight touch-ups here and there, but you can tell the difference. And it's a 7th gen era game that was ported to effectively 8th generation consoles. 1 generation difference, PS3 era to PS4 era, and I can tell that there's a significant improvement that makes me want to buy the game again. It's not from the ground up. If they were somehow able to do that with Generations, that will be a worthy improvement to the game, so that at least with the basics side by side, you could be like, this is clearly the remaster because they bumped this up and they bumped that up. It kind of reminds you of like Sonic P06, right? Like they use the same textures and assets and things from the original 06, but because they put it in a newer engine, they could add newer effects and things. Like when you look at Kingdom Valley in 06 and you look at the one in P06 and they added the rain and all that shit, you could feel the graphical enhancements, but you can still tell it's based off the same assets that was in the original 06. It's not a complete remake in that sense, but you can feel the visual enhancements, right? So things like that is what they could do to take a bare minimum remaster, which is like a 7 out of 10 remaster, to an 8 out of 10 remaster. Now, of course, I have full confidence that Sega is going to do all of these things I just mentioned, and this remaster is going to be amazing.
You know the reality will be different.
Okay, but seriously, looking at the trailer footage and how it basically looks like the same game, it looks like they're going to be doing the bare minimum. It's probably looking like it could be a 7 out of 10 remaster. Again, we don't know if the frame rate's going to be uncapped, so we don't know that yet. And because we don't know that yet, we haven't seen the HUD either. We haven't seen the in-game graphics settings. I have no idea if they're even going to do the bare minimum in that sense. But since we're already talking about this, we might as well talk about the wishful thinking shit, right? What would they do to make it above an 8 out of 10 remaster, like a 9 or even a 10 out of 10? The shit that's not going to happen, but I'm still going to bring it up just to highlight what I would use to consider a 9 or a 10 out of 10 remaster. Honestly, I don't want to repeat myself too much. I made a Sonic Generations Ultimate video months ago detailing like my wishful thinking shit. So if you really want to know the nitty gritty of it, you can watch that video. But I'll mention a few things from that video to give you an idea. One of the things was adding one more era for the games that came out post Generations to truly update the Generations experience. So like a level from Lost World, Mania, Forces, something from Frontiers. But I don't want to say like things have already been said better in that video. Another thing they could do is like a tougher ranking system for the levels, you know, because we all know the Generations rankings are piss easy. Another thing they could do is hard or very hard mode versions of the levels, which we got like hard versions of the bosses or the rival battles, but we didn't get hard versions of the levels. That would be great bonus content that would make the Generations, or I have to say the Sonic Generations portion of this remaster, worthy of just buying it on its own, right? Again, I don't think they're gonna do that wishful thinking shit. I don't even think they're gonna do the 8 out of 10 shit. I don't even know if they're gonna do the bare minimum shit, okay? If I hear it's capped at 60, I'm gonna be annoyed, okay? Really annoyed. Like right now I'm chilling because we don't know yet. But if I hear this thing is gonna be capped again, I'm gonna be fucking annoyed. They probably won't even announce it. The game will come out and we'll just find out. You know how they are. Now let's talk about Shadow Generations, right? What do they need to do for the Shadow portion for it to be great? Now here's the thing. The moment we heard about these leaks and they said there was gonna be bonus Shadow content, the assumption was that the bonus Shadow content wasn't gonna be as good as Sonic Generations, right? It's as simple as that. Like Shadow portion got the pretty graphics, Generations got the pretty level design, okay? That's just how it's gonna be. The majority of the people that work done on Unleashing Generations level design defected to Nintendo and other companies, so I just expected the Shadow portion to have inferior level design. So my expectations were never like, oh, it's gonna be just like Generations, and then disappointed when it wasn't. I saw the trailer, I was like, yeah, this is kind of in that Forces to Cyberspace era of level design. Like, this is what I expected, this is what they delivered, okay? But I'm still gonna mention some points anyway because I have to, right? The physics shouldn't be mid, right? So don't be like Cyberspace. The level design shouldn't be mid, so don't be like Forces or even a lot of Cyberspace. Even though the ship has sailed and unleashed Generations levels of quality level design, still make something that's at least decent, I guess. Something that's enjoyable to play through a couple times. I don't know what to say, man. I can't expect them to do Generations level. That ship has sailed a long time ago, okay? Level length shouldn't be too short, so no Forces, right? Ideally, the game should feel like a decent amount of content and not just feel like Forces Shadow DLC. So you're thinking minimum like 3 to 4 hours on the first playthrough, right? Bowser's Fury took me like 5 hours the first time. And of course the music better be fire, but you know, hopefully they figure that part out and it's not just EDMified versions of Westopolis and things like that. I know Classic Shadow is a thing that people don't want to exist, and I get that. I don't really care about Classic Shadow in that sense, but in a game that's like Sonic X Shadow Generations, it's kind of weird how Shadow probably won't even be playable in the Sonic Generations game itself. I find that really interesting. I mean, damn near half the levels of Generations Shadow's actually been through in his past. He's been through a version of Green Hill. He's obviously been through Seaside Hill. He's obviously been through Crisis City. That's like a third of the levels right there. I mean, I guess City Escape didn't go through that, right? I mean, the point I was trying to make is that it's kind of interesting that it's Sonic X Shadow Generations, but like, back to the cohesion thing I was talking about, it's like, it would have been cool to play a Shadow in the Sonic Generations levels as well. Like, just why not, right? It seems like a simple thing. I'm not saying they won't do that. We don't know yet, but it doesn't seem like that's the plan yet. I don't know. My assumption for them not doing it is probably like, well, they would have to have a classic version of the character and things like that. I understand that. They don't want to make Classic Shadow because I guess it would be cringe. But I mean, you already made the cringe Sonic, which is Classic Sonic, so why not make the cringe Shadow to go along with? I don't know. And for those of you who think I'm hating on Classic Sonic, again, there's a difference between this and this, okay? One of them I don't like. Even though I enjoyed a lot of the classic levels and Generations, I'm just saying in terms of the characterization. But I guess on this classic debate, I guess it raises an interesting question, right? For the Shadow Generations portion of the game, could Classic Shadow have just been like Adventure Shadow? Like, instead of it being like Shadow, because the levels are boost, right? In Shadow Generations, all the levels are boost. It's like that cyberspace kind of level design. But what if they had done like a 2 Shadows, right? What if they had done like a SA2 model Shadow, and he goes through the levels with the spin dash and the slower speed that was typical of SA2, with the skating animation that was in SA2 where he used to skate ridiculously fast. These are just wishful thinking ideas that's like kind of adds to the potential cohesion that this game could have had. Again, we don't really expect this level of going in from Sega, so I'm not upset about this, but I just find it funny how they could put a Shadow the Hedgehog costume in Sonic Superstars for Classic Sonic to wear, but the idea of Classic Shadow in a game called Sonic X Shadow Generations would be ridiculous. Like, it seems like it doesn't compute, illogical, right? But I think that's pretty much my thoughts on Sonic X Shadow Generations right now. Until we get more information, I don't really have much else to say. The information I'm looking forward to seeing is obviously more level design from the Shadow portion to see what it's like, and for the Sonic Generations portion, mainly the things I mentioned about the bare minimum shit. Are they gonna do the bare minimum shit? Are they gonna not do it and just basically give you the PC port again? I don't know, man. Until I know those things, it's really hard to give some kind of definitive score for the game. But those are the questions that I need to be answered the most to really know. But as it stands, Sonic X Shadow Generations is not cohesive at all, but it's cool. Maybe, depending on if they deliver on those things I talked about. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Sonic X Shadow Generations so far. Is it shaping up to be Game of the Year for you? Or is it doing what it needs to do? Like, pros, cons? Let me know. What would you want it to see that you believe Sega won't do? And what levels do you want to see the most? I mean, for going through every game that Shadow's playable in, I'm just saying, like, Egg Fleet right there. Digital Circuit right there. Kingdom Valley right there. I'm just saying. But yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, more content coming soon to the channel. And of course, a big shout out to all my channel members. If you want to become a channel member, you can click the join button next to the subscribe button. But yeah, man, that's all I have to say right now. So, Remy out.